A question I often get asked is, why would someone like me with a background in academia, who've become quite well established and recognised internationally as a researcher and research coordinator, will join forces with an organisation like Zinzino? There's quite a simple answer to that, but it's going to take me a few moments to explain that simple answer. Back in 2020, I was working as a research coordinator for 2 global health strategies. And the problem that we were really starting to face and tackle was the fact that the Office of Global Burden had published data which had been shared by the World Health Organization that estimated a 6.3 billion people on planet Earth were living with an omega-3 deficiency. And that's quite profound. Whenever there's a deficiency of any essential nutrients, it typically leads to poor health outcomes. But something like omega-3, which is so intertwined in our cellular function, really means that there is a problem at a fundamental level. And so we had to consider this. Our body can't produce sufficient amounts of these essential nutrients, and typically we would derive them from the diet. But that's where the problems come in. And the problem has 3 classic phases. The first one is that people just don't consume those types of foods enough, and certainly not frequently enough anymore. Fatty fish, things like mackerel and bluefin tuna and salmon, all these really good sources of omega-3s. Well, as the years go by, people consume less and less as our taste buds have been altered and changed due to the industrialization of food. Secondly, we face a real sustainability and ethical issue. We simply can't pull enough fish out of the sea and maintain any kind of climatological moral basis. It's unsustainable. It's impractical. The reality is, regardless of what the guidelines might infer, is that most people would have to eat good sources of fatty fish most days of the week. And then we get to the third problem, which is cost. And as we know, cost is king. The reality is to get the type of fish that would be sufficiently packed with those nutrients means we have to get wild line caught samples of those fish. We can't do that for 8 billion people living on planet Earth. We can't do that for the 6.3 billion people we know who are deficient. And we can't do it for the sake of the environment. And then imagine again the cost. So we had to look at other solutions, and we did. As a part of the research strategy team I was in, we started to consider, well, what else can we do? And we looked at supplementation, but the reality is that the evidence, the research evidence around supplementation, well, it was quite damning. We knew there was a systematic review published in 2018 that quantified the area. The outcome of that, the statement, the findings were that most of these supplements, well, they failed to function. That they led to negligible or poor outcomes. They didn't change the omega-3 status in a way that we could quantify. So there we were, scratching our heads. How do we fix a global health problem? How do we put back in something that is essential, that needs to be there in order to optimize health? And then, curiously, as these things come about, a good friend of mine called me out of the blue and said, have you ever heard of this Scandinavian company called Zinzino? Now, he was making a personal inquiry. He'd had some health issues over the years, and his doctor over in the United States had recommended this specific company with their specific product and had told him this is the one that works. And I was skeptical. Myself and our team had been looking at this for some time, and to me it was, yeah, here's another one. But he asked me to take a look. And so I did. I thought, I'll take a look. It takes no time. Let's see what's going on in this space. Why would it be any different? And the moment I did, I saw 2 profound aspects that were really game-changing. And I recognized it immediately. First of all, the test. The first thing that I saw was that this was a test-based company. And not only that, because anyone can jump on the snake oil trail and start to tell you things are a problem, tell you things are wrong when in fact they're not. That's easily done. But this was actually a company that had aligned with one of the most reputable, distinguished, independent laboratories in the world. And they were the people who were doing the dry blood spot samples for them. This piqued my interest. In science, let's get real. If we can't measure it, to a certain extent, we don't even accept that it's a reality, and we like to test and test and test again to see how something stacks up against repeated scrutiny. And here we had one of the most recognized laboratories in the world doing this type of blood analysis. And then I looked at the product.